Got Ryan Winter here talking up the Ducks. Sports Chat 503. Oregon is hard at work trying to get better for 2023. And as you look at the football team, whether you want to attack a certain positional unit or there are certain players that are really good players, but hey, need to have a bigger impact, are being challenged, anything like that. Who is this a big spring session for?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think it's actually the biggest for the coaching staff. It's kind of a weird play, but this is a team that was basically a terrible defensive football team. They lost on the defensive side. They lost the game against Washington because they couldn't defend the pass. They lost the game against Oregon State because they couldn't defend the run. I mean, Oregon State literally threw the ball 6 or 7 times and made 6 completions, I think, out of maybe 10 to 12. I don't even know what the stat was, but you knew they were going to run the ball and you couldn't stop them. Washington was the exact opposite. They were going to gash you here and there with their run game, but they just threw the ball all night long. And Dan Lanning was hired as a defensive guy. So I think, and you have Tosh Lupoy, who's known as a defensive guy and known as the brain trust on that team for defense, looks pretty good. So I think there's a lot to be said about we need the defense to be better. And, there were definitely times, especially on third down, they got in trouble the last couple of years. They've just been a bad third down team. And you got to improve that. If you're going to win championships, you got to win the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense was really impressive last year, and there's a question mark about the offense too because you have a new offensive coordinator. Will Stein is in. Kenny Dillingham's down in Tempe. So I think there's still question marks across the board. I would love to say defensively, though, I think you should really look to the linebackers. I think the linebacker core is the one spot that I'm going to look at, and then offensively, I think it's the tight end position. I think both of those position groups have lost some guys. And, last year, Oregon went into the year with 2 very well-known middle linebackers. Justin Flo, Noah Sewell were 2 very well-known names, very hyped up coming out of high school. And people were talking about how it could be one of the best linebacker corps in the country. It did not turn out that way. Noah Sewell was injured, fought through it the whole year. And Justin Flo, same thing, ups and downs. Didn't really play that much at all. Didn't really get that many snaps even together by the end of the year. So this year it's going to be Jeffrey Bassa. He's the guy, the middle linebacker. He was brought down from a safety position in the year before that. And I think that he's just a really impressive middle linebacker. He's the kind of middle linebacker that I think Dan Lanning wants, which is a guy who's a little bit faster, can maybe go and kind of control the flat a little bit better than just controlling the line of scrimmage. So I would say that the coaching staff have to make a big push. And I would say that on the defensive side, we got to look for those linebackers to do a little bit better.
Gary Bryant is a wide receiver that caught 44 passes, 7 touchdowns 2 seasons ago at USC. He's made a trip to Eugene. He's visited Arizona, Texas A&M, Miami. He's apparently going to make a decision here soon. Is that just a plus, an add-on if he makes his decision for the Ducks, or is that a position of severe need?
No, well, the transfer portal has been fairly good for the Ducks this already offseason for the wide receiver room. You've got a couple of guys in there possibly looking to start. I think the more the merrier. I'm pro transfer portal. I don't know your thoughts. I've obviously watched your show and seen you kind of maybe come around and progress a little bit like us old timers have, and being a little more accepting to it. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can't avoid it, right? They're probably going to make changes to it a little bit here and there and tweak it, but. The problem Oregon has is that Oregon is above the limit in the scholarship number. And so I don't know if they're in a complete green light, free-for-all type of we'll take anybody. But I do think that talent-wise, they will find a place. If you have the talent, they'll find a place for you, and they'll take another guy off the bottom there. Things have changed when it comes to the scholarships, and things have changed when it comes to these colleges where, the NIL deals, the transfer portal, everything else, just so much is now fluid that, anything is open. I really think the cool thing about it is that you never stop recruiting. You recruit the kid out of high school, you continue to keep a relationship with them all the way through college, and you never know. Their last year, they might say, you know what, coach, I'm going to finally go with you now. 6-7 years later. So, yeah, I do think that you're going to see a lot of transfer portal stuff continue because the 2 windows of the transfer portal are really interesting to me. The first window, it feels like, are guys who just know right out of the gate, I've done the rest of this year. I'm going to ride this thing out. I'm going to hit the portal right away. Boom. The second one feels like more they're reading the room. They're reading to see, hey, where is my playing time? what's going on here? Has there other guys come in the first transfer portal session that might bump me in my playing time? And kind of where do I stand? Maybe there's coaching change that has changed or flipped, position coaches move, which are very important to these guys. The relationship with some of these coaches are, I think, maybe underestimated by the national media sometimes. When their position group changes, they might want to go to a more comfortable place. So we saw that definitely here at Oregon. We saw Coach Demetrius Martin come down from Colorado, and he brought with him Christian Gonzalez. And Christian Gonzalez had an absolutely dynamite year and might be the next representative of the Ducks in the first round of the NFL draft later this month. So
I am not crazy about it from a fan, big picture perspective in terms of what's good for college football, just because I think there's something special and has been for decades and decades to seeing and knowing for the rest of your lifetime that your favorite players on your favorite team have always been Oregon Ducks and will never play and did never play for anybody else. But my preferences or my, feelings as a fan pale in comparison to the flag waving behind you. I'm 100% freedom of choice, 100% freedom of choice.
Right.
That's what's important. We're talking about
Right.
my feelings as a fan versus somebody's life. And so their life and their freedom of choice is certainly much more important and should be preserved. So I have no issue with the transfer portal, and especially now that it's under control with the 2 pockets of time during the year in which the coaches can then play off of that and plan for the next season. I have no issue with it.
I agree, and I'm with you, Mark. I think we agree a lot on a lot of politics and everything else out there. That we're America first. We're about that freedom, boy. And I'm telling you that I really like that idea. They like the upper mobility. I like the opportunity for kids to be able to move. They don't like the spot. Maybe their parents were involved a little too much in their recruitment process coming out of high school. Their parents pushed them to one school. They wanted to go to the other school. There's a lot of things going on here. But just the thing. I know you like to go back in time, and I know you have an affinity for those Buckeyes. Imagine the transfer portal now with like a Cordell Jones, right? When you have like the situation with they had a third string quarterback at the ready, and in the transfer portal the way it is now, maybe he's gone. Maybe he's gone that year earlier. I mean, isn't that crazy to think about that? And during that time, just a couple 10 years ago, whatever that was, 8 or 10 years ago, that you have this kind of a different era. Even to think about Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow is on that Ohio State team as well. Transfers, goes somewhere. It's amazing to show. One, I think shows the embarrassment of riches Ohio State has, which is awesome for you guys. But at the other level, I do think it shows that these guys have an opportunity to go someplace and be successful. The quarterback position is always the weirdest one because you're going to have talent in the number 2 and number 3 spot. They're just never going to see the field. And I think that's not the hard part about that is that it's really tough to keep these guys in the quarterback room at any of these D1 big-time schools. It's hard to keep these guys in the room. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. I mean, who claims him in the NFL, right? Is he a Bama guy? Is he an Oklahoma guy? Is he both? I mean, so that's kind of the new era that we're in, and I agree. We just have to kind of accept it and roll with it at this point.
And the quarterback position is just different because you can only play one. Shoot, right. If you're an offensive lineman and you can't find playing time at your current school, then you're probably not going to find playing time somewhere else if you're going to the same level. Because if you can't get in that 6 or 7 man rotation, then things are pretty much spelled out for you. But only one quarterback can play.